I'm just finding that section in this book that you didn't read.
Welcome back to Tools and Track. When we ended the last update on this place, we did say that Locost stuff was going to happen again. But I also did say this is never going to become a bench again.
And it has became a workbench.
It's not even a workbench.
It's just a storage area.
Just a shelf.
Yeah.
It's just a shelf. So this gets dealt with, and I promise, once and for all.
All the Locost people are going to be so raging
They're just
right
like,
now.
every time this is an episode, it's like, why is my car a shelf again?
Yeah. I'm trying to find the section. Where is that section in this book?
I don't know what you're talking about.
So there's a section in this book, right, that Tommy has. Oh, I found it, right. Tommy needs to read this bit, right?
I'm actually trying to do Locost stuff here.
So look at this. Look, a good set of dampers is a worthwhile investment.
I know. He's having a go.
The MX-5 is still bouncing along the road, and you've got a book that you bought and read that says, a good set of dampers is a worthwhile investment.
Yeah. I wish there was something I could damp you.
So what happened with the book? You said,
yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. So how very dare I go on another episode without actually working on the Locost? What's going on? Isn't this the Locost channel? Well, no, it's not. It's my channel, so sit down and just take it. What we need to do as the final part of aligning this workshop to be in a usable space again is deal with this. I want this to be manoeuvrable. That means the axle stands that it's on are kind of not suitable for task. Yeah, axle stands are fine, but you'll notice that there's actually not really enough weight on the axle stands themselves for this to be stable. Also, I know we're about to put wheels and tyres on it, but that only makes it really manoeuvrable this way. If I wanted to move it over that way or that way, you are talking about a 74-point turn. What I want is some form of jig that allows us to move this. Now, before anyone says, why don't you just put the wheels on and finish it? This will still be used long after the car's built, because if I bring it in for repairs, storage, anything else, it has to sit in this space, which means a tight 90-degree turn and a level of manoeuvrability. Not only that, if I have this and it's strong enough, I want to be comfortable enough to work under it and have it just lock off. So we're making a dolly. Now, as luck would have it, I've actually put a bit of thought into my dolly, which is basically a fancy old-timey name for a manoeuvrable trolley. Now, I want it to live under the car, but there's going to be some criteria it has to meet. But first and foremost, how's the dolly going to move? Simple way to explain this. I have two tool chests here. You'll see that this one, the newer one, comes with its own dollies. These are completely 360-degree turnable and lockable, but these ones are fixed. So as a result, this trolley has to be 3-point turned into just about wherever it goes. This trolley, however, that has 4 articulated wheels. So I could pull that trolley straight out this way, that way, that way. But that guy, that's a bit harder to manoeuvre. Or to put it another way, I need to build a queen, not a rook, or a castle, or a knight. And sadly, I can't pawn this job onto anyone else. It's a custom car, this has to be custom built, so it's going to be custom welding, isn't it? So how does that apply to this? Well, the obvious idea would be to make it the whole length of the underfloor of the car. That's going to be robust, it's going to catch on each of the corners, but it's also going to take up massive amounts of room when it's not in use. So plan B, we can cantilever over the front as long as we cantilever over the back to the same amount of weight. By cantilever, I mean overhang. So the other good point about that is, the shorter I make the dolly, the easier it is to rotate 360 degrees, because I don't have a large area to turn. It can sort of pivot a lot simpler. But the trade-off to that is any weight in the front or the back, if I lean on it, could potentially make the car do this. That's a bigger problem right now. However, when there's an engine in it and it's fully laden, it's probably not going to be such a big issue. Other things to consider, it's going to have to be high enough for me to at least scooch under, and when the wheels are on it, for them not to touch the deck and drag. If any of this car has wheels touching the ground with dollies under it, it's going to restrict the movement. So there's a minimum height it needs to hit. There isn't technically a maximum height now that I think about this, but I do not need the thing to be here and then I'm trying to start the engine up like that. Another thing is I'd quite like it to be dismantleable so that when I actually have the car off it, I can flat pack the thing and move it out the way. Whilst that's a nicety, it's not an essential at the moment. We can certainly come back to that as an idea later on, but it's something to consider just now. But the biggest problem I have, and the biggest hurdle I'm going to have to come across, is how this will attach to the bottom of the car. And I say attach using the Border Force drug mirror that I'm going to really make everybody feel ill watching with. Underneath the car, I have done the following. We have sheeted all of the front, and we have sheeted all of the middle bit. So as a result, I don't have a lot of nice corner sections for me to butt something against. So as you're probably aware by now, all of these plans have a Rev 1, and I usually finish around about Rev 7 or 8. So this is Rev 1, as you can see, overhead, side and rear profile of the chassis. Now, what I have at the back is a really obvious, nice straight edge with which to put something to catch a dolly on here. Now, the distance between those two bits is 1,120, because if you remember, the chassis was 1,118 and we've added 2 1mm sheets of panel on it. So that's my maximum width. We'll put 2 wheels here and here, but my question comes between the back and the front. What do we do? Now, the front is where it gets really tricky, because whilst I have a really nice edge with which to catch a bracket here, there's actually all at the front, because as you can see, I've sheeted it all in lovely fancy aluminium. That would have been perfect if it was exposed. So what are my options? We could go right the way down to here, but Christ, that's going to be a long dolly. My other option is we get creative. And bugger me if creative isn't just my middle name. So I've put 1600 here because that is more or less where the front of the bulkhead is, plus a bit more for whatever kind of buggery I want to do, plus 1600 was a nice round number. So if we were to do, draw a bit better, you fat f***, a dolly that obviously with a bit more reinforcement looks a bit like this, we'd have a flat plinth here and an edge plinth here. So that'll stop the car moving back. And if we were to cap that, basically here and here, it'll stop it going off sideways. But how do we deal with the front? Well, we can cap it from going backwards and sideways with one really obvious solution. So if I was to use this bit there as the structural part, have a landing pad for the dolly at the front and a hole that goes through here, straight through the landing pad of the dolly and locates the front end, then that should work. Or at least it'll be a starter for 10. So let's do that as Rev 1, and then by the end of this episode, it'll look nothing like that. That is the front leg lined up, obviously shorter than the back because the front is shorter than the back. But stroke of luck, these are the same mounts I bought for the roll cage, which by complete and utter coincidence are the same mounts for casters, which leads me to a conclusion. They have clearly not come up with roll cage mounts off the back of their heads and went, this is what we should do for roll cage mounts. They've took caster mounts and went, do you know what would be good? Is if we make these as roll cage mounts as well. So I guess I've got to the bottom of that one. Anyway, I'm going to weld these up and then we need to talk about something else. Why is my pole squint? It's not a mistake, I promise. Casters are on this one, and as you can see, I've took the centre line up from here and measured where the true centre line is, which is obviously the middle measurement from these two. And we are 50mm off, just for comparison, and measured 50 out. That's where the pipe's going to go. Now, why have I measured this? 50mm off, what's the deal? When it sits under there, that 50mm offset means that I can still put a jack in with ease, or some form of support to deal with gearbox and transmission issues. Granted, I can't actually lift the car or do anything silly with it, but it means that I have a way of supporting and keeping the little trolley in without, you know, it just sitting on the trolley or being a pain in the arse. This will come in handy later on. Next up, let's make two become one. So the rears were a bit of an obvious thing. Just a pair of pedestals that will hold the back of the car, like that. We'll come back to whether or not we need any sideways location. I've got a funny feeling not. I'm probably going to put some rubber on here just to bite the car. I'm pretty sure its own weight will do the rest. So I'm going to get these on. Probably need to square off the bottoms a wee bit because my cars haven't been the best lately. I'm going to weld these onto the jig and then we're going to look at how we do the fronts. I think I'm probably going to put the rear of the car on the little dolly, and then we'll use the car itself to actually design where the front ones need to go. I'm still torn about how to do this, but I think it's going to be a wee suck it and see for the last bit, but at least we'll know the back will work as soon as I get them on. I'm also not entirely sold that the whole jig's not going to need some form of gussets. We all love gussets, but this isn't the thickest. I wanted this jig to be fairly hand manoeuvrable once a car's not on it, so it's not War and Peace, it's just 1mm thick, but it might be a bit thin, so we'll come back to that. If strength needs to be added, we can add it, but I'd also maybe consider going and making this like nut and bolt disassemblable, just so that it can be disassemblable, but we'll come back to that. That's only going to be a problem when the car's not on it and it gets in the way, but I think we can find somewhere to put it. Anyway, let's weld. I feel like this doesn't need much explanation, but I assume that's a lot, so I'll just give it anyway. As you can see, we have two straight edges here and two straight edges up here. Now those two will locate onto one perfectly parallel back quarter of the Locost, right? So obviously I don't want these to be squint, so we've got this bar locating them. What the bar also does is keeps those in a parallel plane, because I know I welded them on straight to that and them on straight to that. So the posts should also be relatively straight. But what I've then put is plates on the bottom to make sure they've got a plinth to sit on and clamped it all up so that I know that it's all dead square because I really don't want this car sitting in the drag and go, because that means I'm an idiot. Now that we've got all that lined up, we can weld it. Now, one thing I have learned over the years, there is no point in dicking about with fancy measurements if there's a quicker way of doing it, which is going to be just as correct. And that way, in this instance, is rather than go measure up the gap and make sure you're all 3D aligned, just stick the bloody posts on, tack them in place, make sure they're square, whip it all out and weld it up. The only problem with that idea is, yes, it's now nice and straight and perfect and everything looks lovely, but in order to get it back out to properly weld it, bugger. So Daniel's here to give me a hand, because he's good like that.
I've got a jig, a frame supporting thing.
Dolly's the word I was going with.
Okay.
I'll call it a dolly.
Rollable transport device.
There we go. So I need to lift this to make it work. So what we're going to do is align it.
That's a good idea.
And then roll it in as I lift the car.
That sounds good.
That's the plan.
That sounds like a good plan.
The back will slide in because there's no wheels on it, right? The front, I need to lift the front.
The front will not lift.
Right, so I'll just do that. Right, let's get a bit there. Are we on?
Yes.
Shall we see if it works?
Oh, it's going to work, isn't it? Look at us.
Yeah, but how easy is it going to be?
Oh, look at that. Oh, just crash it into stuff.
That's quite exciting.
There you go.
Let's see though, if I was to lock it, does it work equally as well at not moving?
I would hope so.
It doesn't go anywhere. And if you think, by the way, it's still a bit sugary. So are the axle stands. So
the axle stands are quite sugary.
Yeah, I don't think it's that much.
It's not that. It's not really sugary.
How do you unlock it though? That's the question.
There you go.
Now, do you know what's good? I literally built this entire thing just so I could sweep up.
It's good. This does a job.
Yeah. But understandably, it's not just for sweeping the floor. This has a substantial impact on some of the activities that we've got coming up very soon. Oh, this is so good. Just gives yourself space though. And space is the key. We're going to make this car physically bigger, so moving it around, getting that camera angle for you guys to see what we're doing is going to be really important. So that is kind of the main reason. And of course, the long-term plans. But anyway, today's episode is brought to you by the word share. Don't just do the like and the bell thing, share. Share the video, get it across your social media feeds, because I really appreciate a few more subs than what we've got just now. Also, if you want to support a bit more than that, patreon.com/toolsandtrack, that does help support all of this sort of jazz. And the people running up the side of the screen are testament to that. Awesome people, go join them, be one of them. And until next weekend, guys, try safe. I love this. So happy.